Hey guys, Chapter 1, Section 4 video here for you today if you're following along in the same book as we are in class. We are going to work on this essential question. How can you solve an absolute value equation? So a key part of algebra is solving equations, and one of those includes knowing how to do absolute value equations. But before we can really do that, we better make sure we all feel like we know what absolute value really is. So let's start with this. In your notebook, draw a nice number line. Put 0 in the middle and use your graph paper to go out to 5 and -5. So you're going to make a nice scale. You draw arrows on both ends of your number line. You're going to make it nice and neat. If I go fast, just hit that pause button so that you can write everything down. So what is absolute value? Well, absolute value is a measurement. It's the distance from 0 on a number line. So all we're doing when we talk about absolute value is we're measuring distance from 0. So for instance, if I said, what's the absolute value of -4? Well, first off, here's how we'd write it. We use these double bars, these lines. That's the symbol for absolute value. And -4, it's on the number line. We can look and see how far from 0 it is. In fact, we're going to do this. Here's 0. We are going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. It is 4 steps to -4. So what's the absolute value of -4? Well, it's just 4. That's how far away it is. Now, to kind of do the reversal of this, what if I said, what's the absolute value of 4? Well, it's kind of the same story. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is also 4 steps away from 0, just in the other direction. So the answer, again, is 4. So a lot of people, when they learn about absolute value, they think all it does is make the number positive. And they're a little bit right, but what it really is how far from 0 are you? Okay, so put your pencil down here for a moment. You don't need to write this in your notebook, but let's just see if you kind of got the hang of this. So what would the absolute value of -12 be? Well, it'd be 12, right? 12 steps away. What would the absolute value of 42 be? Well, thankfully, we don't have to draw a number line all the way to 42 because it's 42 steps from 0. What would the absolute value of -234 be? Yeah, it'd be 234. That's how far away from 0 it is. What would the absolute value of 54.37 be? Yep, 54.37. You're getting the hang of this. So pick up your pencil and let's do our first example now, example 1. And we're going to build up to what we're actually working on. Now, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to solve for x. So let's start out simple. Let's say x, the absolute value of x was equal to 15. Well, what could x be? Let's think about it. Well, x is inside the absolute value. So what could it be? Well, inside it could be a 15 because the absolute value of 15 is 15. Or what else could it be? It could be a -15. There are two possible answers. So when we show our work for these problems, what we do is we split it and say, hey, there's two possible answers. It either equals 15 or it equals -15. Okay, so the concept being that we split this up is what we're going to use for the more complicated problems. And what's interesting about these problems is the fact that there are two answers. There's more than one right answer, and that's kind of interesting because usually when we solve for x, we only find one answer. Well, now there's two. Okay, so let's try an example 2, make it a little bit more complicated. So we're going to solve for x, but this time here's our problem. Absolute value of x minus 5 equals 22. Absolute value of x minus 5 equals 22. Well, okay, let's think about this. Inside the absolute value has to be either a 22 or a -22. So we're going to split it. We're going to say, okay, x minus 5 has to equal 22, or x minus 5 has to equal -22. Those are the two possible solutions. So we put lines down the middle and we solve for x. We add the 5 over. That'll be quick for us. And 22 plus 5 is 27. Or we add the 5 over, and -22 plus 5 is not a 27, it's a -17. So our two possible answers for x are 27 and -17. And even to take this a little bit farther, let's check our answers and see if we're actually right. We have two checks to do, one for 27 and one for -17. Now we're going to check it on the original problem, which was absolute value x minus 5 equals 22. Now what's x? Well, we think it's 27, so we're going to do 27, take away 5. 27 take away 5 is 22, absolute value of 22. And is the absolute value of 22 equal to 22? Absolutely. So if the first check works, it's all good. Let's check it again. Same problem. Absolute value of x minus 5 equals 22. This time for the x, we're going to put in negative 17. So it's going to be the absolute value of negative 17 take away 5. Well, negative 17 take away 5 is negative 22. And the absolute value of negative 22, of course, is 22. So check, check. So we're looking good now. Both of our answers worked. So not only have we shown all of our steps, but now we've also checked all of our steps. How about you try? I'm going to give you a problem here today. Here is your problem. Solve for x. I'm going to give you an A and a B. Here's A. Absolute value of negative 2x equals 14. Right now, I want you to hit the pause button on your device, and it's your turn to give this a try. Go ahead and see if you can solve for x. All right, you ready to check your answer? Let's see. We're going to split this up. We're going to get two solutions. Either the negative 2x is equal to 14, or the negative 2x is equal to negative 14. Put a line down the middle on both and divide those negative 2's away. So we're going to get x is equal to negative 7. And if we divide the negative 2 away over here, we're going to get x is equal to positive 7. So our two solutions are negative 7 and positive 7. How'd you do? Did you get the same thing? All right, try letter B here. Absolute value of x minus 7 equals negative 2. Again, I'm going to say it. Hit the pause button and solve. Good luck. All right, you ready to check your answer? Let's see how you did. So we are going to split this problem up. But there's one key thing that is standing out to me, and I wonder if you fell for this. Absolute value of x minus 7 equals negative 2. Tell me, what can you take the absolute value of and get an answer of negative 2? Think about that. Absolute value can never be negative, right? It always turns into a positive. It's the distance from 0. So the answer to this question is not going to be a solution. In fact, x is going to equal no solution. There is no possible answer for x because it's impossible to have an absolute value equal to negative 2. Now, you might have split this up and you might have solved it and you might have ended up with a couple of answers. You probably would have ended up with like, I don't know, 5 and 9 or something like that. But if that's what you did you check your answer? Because if you checked it, it shouldn't have worked because you cannot absolute value and get a negative 2. So sorry guys, a little bit of a trick question I just threw at you, but it's a trick you got to look out for. No solution is your answer. All right guys, so that wraps up our first video on absolute value. The big takeaway from this video is you got to know that to get absolute value solutions, you need to split it up and go for two answers. Thanks guys, have a good day.